I'm wondering if this is going to cause feedback.
You might have to just mute it.
Okay.
We'll play the game. We'll try to be heard online.
I can't hear.
You'll be able to hear it.
And there's Brenda.
All right. Hey, Brenda.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. How are
Can you hear
you?
me? Oh, okay.
Doing
Just wanna
well.
make sure you can hear me.
Yeah. Okay. It looks like we've got everybody here, so we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. I'm just going to go over a couple logistics. Just as a reminder, your main controls are on the left-hand side of the computer. These are your audio and video controls. Board members, please make sure to keep your camera on while the meeting is in progress and to mute yourselves when you're not talking. Next, I wanted to go over some guidelines as to how you as board members will participate in the meeting. The mayor will be calling on board members individually to provide comments. If you would like to speak at any time during the meeting, please raise your hand. Most importantly, please let me know if anything happens to your attendance during the meeting, such as any technical difficulties, as we'll have to suspend the discussion. Lastly, we need to call the roll call. I'll call on each board member individually. Please indicate if you're present. Mayor Pappas,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem McMillon,
Present.
Commissioner Simpson,
Present.
Commissioner Westlick,
Present.
Commissioner Morey,
Present.
thank you. All board members are present. Mayor, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Melody. I'll have Pedro mute over there.
I'm muted. No, I don't know why it's going. I'm going to go something else.
A little bit of technical difficulty here. Just hang on a second. I'll let him get set up. Might have to close that door, I think.
Grab a chair.
Just hang on a moment while we rearrange.
It worked the first time around. So, very good. Okay, I think that we're all ready to go again. Again, welcome everybody. This is our, I guess, third virtual meeting that we've had, and welcome to this Board of Commissioners work session, May 7th, 2020, 1 p.m. So at this time, I call the meeting to order. So I think we're ready to go with the new business. And so I'm going to turn this over to our town manager, Jeff Wells, and finance director, Rosemary Bernauer. And I think the handover is to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everybody being online this afternoon. And I'm not sure if I see everybody on the screen here, but you should have most of your department heads online as well. And if there's any specific question that myself or Rosemary can't answer about a specific item, then they'll be happy to chime in and be part of the discussion as we move along. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. which so far, so good. Can everybody see that?
Affirmative, yes.
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 All right.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you. And I just want to say right off the top how proud I am of the staff and all the work that has been put into this document and this presentation up to this time. We had an abbreviated time period to get this work done, and everybody graciously stepped up to the plate. It certainly was one of the most challenging budgets in the way of having to reduce the expenditures with the expected reduced revenues. But overall, it's been a very pleasant process in working with all the staff and the department heads. A few special thank yous. The first thank you is actually to Paula Key, and she was a great resource as our accounts payable and one of your most tenured employees. She provided a lot of great insight and advice on expected revenues on where we hope to not be. Honestly, hopefully we'll have more, but we wanted to conservatively estimate those. Special thanks also to Melody Schuler for enduring a lot of meetings with me during this process, and as well as a very special thanks to Rosemary, who not only endured a lot of day meetings with me, but also quite a few night discussions, sometimes kind of late at night discussions, and working to get this done. So it's really been an enjoyable process, as I said again, and we're looking forward to presenting it to you today. So first off, just kind of some general global notes. The property tax rate as proposed would remain unchanged, 38.5 cents. And just for your own FYI, that roughly equates to about $217,000 for every penny on the tax rate. And as I mentioned before, we do have great concerns with revenue sources for the COVID in regards to impacts of the COVID pandemic, and I'll go over those a little bit as we go along. So that will lead to some more conservative expectations for town revenues this upcoming budget year. So here is the primary spreadsheet that shows the overall budget. The total proposed budget for this upcoming fiscal year would be $13,579,900. Last year's, or this year, I guess, current budget's $15,581,490. So we're looking to reduce the budget for this proposed budget year by just a little over $2 million. Your general fund would be close to $1 million lower, coming in just under $1 million at $970,000. Your only fund that comes in actually a little bit up is the capital projects fund, and I'll go over that in a little bit as well. All of your other funds also have, in some cases, small reductions, and then in other cases, significant reductions. All that equates to about a $2 million reduction, as I mentioned before. So as far as your revenue fund, general fund revenue highlights, we're looking at about a 3.5% increase in our tax base. And we estimate that revenue this year to be a little over $7.5 million. We also estimate an increase in motor vehicle tax revenue at about 5%. So we're looking at about $820,000. So of course, the increase in the real and personal property is primarily due to residential housing, very little on the non-residential side. Motor vehicles, I guess that tells us that more people are buying and registering motor vehicles. And of course, that's due to the more housing that has been added to the town's housing stock. And of course, those two funds are the primary sources for revenue in the town. You notice that the other ones all have projected decreases and very significant decreases. First would be sales and use tax. We're projecting conservatively a 35% decrease at $1.4 million. Franchise taxes at $600,000, which is a 28% decrease. Interest earnings at $100,000, which is a 43% decrease. And then our other revenues, that's kind of a large grab bag of different revenues that we get in. Some of them are local revenues, such as permitting fees, rezoning fees, parks and recreation fees. Other revenues might be ABC sales tax, things that we get annually, and other types of revenues. Your total for the general fund would be $10,915,000, or approximately a total decrease of 9% of your overall budget. And this is how it looks graphically. Last year, your real and personal property tax was just over 60%. This year, it's 69%. Reason for that is, of course, your budget's retracting, and that's still your primary source of revenue. So hence, that percentage is going to go up a little bit. Your motor vehicle tax is 8%. This year, the sales and use tax, and of course, these numbers would have been larger last year and in previous years, but this year they're smaller at 13% for sales and use tax. Franchise taxes at 5%, and then interest at 1%, and other revenues at 4%. Our general fund balance, our policy goal is to keep that between 30 and 40% of the general fund budget, and we have maintained that. As of our last audit, the unassigned fund balance was 53% for roughly $6.2 million. And the estimated fund balance prior to this year's audit at roughly this time is 47 to 48%. That's taking into account our expected property purchase coming up on the agenda on Tuesday evening. As far as general fund expenditures, we categorize those into three different areas. The first one is personnel expenditures. And like all local governments, this is the town's largest expenditure category. It accounts for approximately 54% of the general fund expenditures. Note, though, that this does exclude the building inspections function, as that's through a separate enterprise fund. We have our operating expenditures. This is utilities, supplies, fuels, trainings, equipment, smaller equipment needs, all the things that we need to operate and our staff needs to operate as a town. And then lastly, you have capital expenditures, and these are more larger scale purchases over $5,000 for equipment, vehicles, software. You won't see as many of these purchases in this year's budget. That's where we have looked to significantly cut back on not only capital expenditures for equipment and project or vehicles, but also for capital projects as well, as we'll get into shortly. So a few of the highlights, the major highlights of this budget, first and foremost is implementing the Enterprise Fleet Management Program. And this is a phased program. It's designed to replace our entire fleet over a 5-year period. The first year, we would look to replace 14 vehicles, and all these vehicles are models that are 10 years or older. And this would be a cost of $60,000 to do half year's worth of the leases. That's one of the cost-cutting measures that we did in order to help balance the budget in a more challenging environment financially. And you'd have the cost to equip your police patrol vehicles, which is $184,000. The idea behind this program, though, is that over time, and we'll start to recycle vehicles every 5 years, and over the long run, this will it will reduce our costs, and it will modernize our fleet, and then we will have less of a hassle on the back end of having to surplus and get rid of these, as Enterprise will do that for us. And from what I understand, when they cycle these vehicles out, they still make good money on these, leasing them or selling them to other folks. So I think it's a good program for all involved. It's obviously good for enterprise fleet management, or they wouldn't offer it. And it'll be good for us long-term as well. I think your staff are really excited about this, and not having to worry about keeping 15-year-old cars and things like that on the road. So I think this is a good program to move towards. And as I said, we'd propose to start that mid-year, January 1st. We would have a modest increase to our solid waste contract, and that's because we had a little bit more left over in the budget this year than we thought. Previously, it was budgeted to 1.3 million and some change. In July, we were spending $108,000 a month, and it's gone up to about between 111 and 112,000. So we're using the housing starts that we have and estimating that would go up another probably $4,000 or so. But we're conservatively estimating it at $120,000 though, to come up with the number of 1.442 million. We'll also continue the $25,000 contribution to the Waxhaw Volunteer Fire Department. Some of our other larger purchases, we have our continued lease on the town hall building that comes in at roughly $120,000. We budget 110 of that, the administration budget, and then the other 10,000 in our building inspections budget, since they do occupy part of the building. We continue to have our sizable debt payment for the police department. That totals $526,700. That loan is scheduled to be paid off in the year 2028. So one of the things that I would like to do moving forward is look at opportunities to reduce that interest cost. We're paying $400,000 in principal and a little over $100,000 in interest. And one of the things I initially noticed in looking at this is that we're paying on it quarterly. So there might be some opportunities that we can at least shave off a little bit of that interest if we just simply go to monthly payments. So I'll be looking at those opportunities, and then maybe some other bigger opportunities to help not reduce the cost, but try to get it paid off quicker, I guess you could say. So we'll look at those opportunities as we move forward. We'll have our continued expense of our street light bills. So to pay our bills for all of our street lights, that's about $216,000 a year. We are looking to equip our police department with body cameras. They found a great program that will actually allow for the cost of these body cameras to be allocated over a 5-year period. So $44,000 would be the cost for them in year 1. And of course, you're familiar that they have sent in the grant application that the board endorsed at the last meeting, and hopefully we would get that grant and be able to actually shave some of the cost off of this expenditure as well. We have not included any summertime events in the Parks and Recreation budget. Of course, this is strictly due to difficulties concerning COVID-19. We didn't know until yesterday that the state would start its reopening process. We think that that'll still be a fairly gradual process. It was hard for us to imagine really encouraging or managing crowds in the early to mid part of the summer. So I made the executive decision to recommend that we not have any summertime events and just focus on the fall and moving forward with all the great events that we had. I didn't think it was wise or good to put our Parks and Rec department in position to try to plan for things that they didn't know could happen. We're also looking to consolidate costs. These costs were previously allocated to several departments. A few examples, workers' comp and liability. I didn't really see any reason to have those assigned to each department. It's one check that we write to the NC League every year. And so we're putting those in administration. Cost for phones and stipends. When we would get a phone bill here, you'd have to have a dozen people or some number like that sign off on it. I didn't really see that to be a necessary thing to do. So we've consolidated the phones into IT and the stipends into HR. If somebody's interested in knowing what the department's paying for their phones, we can simply pull the invoices and see what those costs are instead of having everybody sign off on that cost each month. And then also we're moving all of the computer hardware and software costs over to IT. Really, they've been in charge of this from day one. IT has been the folks that have reminded folks, hey, you know, you need a computer this year, or hey, you need this software, or whatever it is. And so it just made sense to me to move all that in one spot, have that taken care of in one budget. Staffing wise, the total number of positions is 71, and that is a net increase in one new position. It adds a full-time position in the administration budget. That would be the deputy clerk position that was discussed and presented to you at the retreat. It would add a full-time position in the police department, the patrol officer position that would add the missing link, I guess, in that one squad there to equalize all those. That position, though, would not start until mid-year. That was just one of the little things I needed to do to help balance this reduced budget. And so we're proposing that that officer start in January 1st of 2021. I removed the planning tech position from the budget. That position was currently vacant. And so that reduces the planning department from 6 to 5. And then another note on the planning department, since I am serving in that dual role now as a town manager and planning director, one of the other little budget balancing helps that I did is I budgeted the planning director position at half the year. So I guess whether I like it or not, or whether anybody likes it or not, I am looking to do both rows until the end of the calendar year. And so that one would theoretically be able to start January 1st, 2021. It allows for up to a 2% merit for staff. And then the clerk budget, it has in the last several years had its own budget, but we merged the clerk back into the administration budget. And so here's a look graphically on the percentage of expenditures. Elected officials is 2%, administration total is 26%, and that really includes management, clerk, IT, HR. Police is 39%, Parks and Recreation is 8%, Public Services 9%, and then Development Services and Planning together are 16% of your general fund expenditures. So a quick rundown of each department budget that you have. The elected officials budget, and of course that's the budget associated with Board of Commissioners while on town business. The original 2019-20 budget was $243,430. We're proposing the 2021 budget at $212,300. Administration, this is just general administration and day-to-day operation of the town. The 2019-20 budget was $862,705. The 2020-21 proposed budget's $954,600. Finance department, the 2019-20 budget was $562,950. The proposed 2021 is $380,800. And of course, the finance, they ensure compliance with North Carolina financial law, statutes, handling all of the day-to-day accounting and financial matters. IT, they're responsible for the operation of the town's computer systems, digital networks, provide technical support for everybody. Their budget 2019-20 is $320,530. Their proposed budget for 2021 is $581,000. Human Resources, they administer our benefits package, conduct employment searches, Their budget for 1920 was $160,115. The proposed budget for 2021 is $253,700. The police department, they include administration, patrol, detectives, and animal control. Also do a lot of community education and community policing. Their 2019-20 budget was $3,764,750. The 2021 proposed budget's $3,638,900. Engineering, they provide professional services related to transportation planning, plan review, stormwater drainage, general design and inspection services. Their 2019-20 budget was $636,155. The 2021 proposed budget's $586,400. Planning and zoning, that's the operational expenses associated with planning, zoning, and subdivision administration. The 1920 budget, $788,125, and the 2021 proposed budget's $528,800. The downtown budget, that's certain projects and maintenance costs associated with downtown, including one staff member, and that's the Main Street manager. That 2019-20 budget was $175,810. Your proposed 2021 budget is $144,500. Code enforcement, this is the personnel associated with field enforcement of town codes and regulations. The 19-20 budget was $76,010, and the 2021 budget was proposed at $75,800. Parks and Recreation, this is the department that maintains town parks, administers numerous programs and events. 2019-20 was $1,098,955, and the proposed 2021 budget is $990,900. Public Services, this is the department responsible for street, utility, landscaping, maintenance of town property and rights of way, responsible for maintenance of the town fleet. 19-20 budget was $994,245. The 2021 proposed is $1,077,100. Sanitation or waste pickup, we contract with Waste Pro, and of course they have had quite the bit of work here lately with everybody being at home, but the proposed budget is $1,442,400, with last year's 19-20 budget was $1,390,000. Emergency management and safety, this is a budget to support admin and emergency management and safety type functions. We also include a portion of the annual contribution made to the Waxhaw Volunteer Fire Department here. The 19-20 budget's $45,995, with the proposed 2021 budget being $48,000. So our other funds, we have a capital projects fund, and we have one project that the board is committing to for this budget year, and that's currently the project at Gray Byram Road and NC 16. It's an intersection improvement project. This was actually a project that was scheduled to be completed already by the NCDOT through some spot safety funds, but just time and budget shortfalls have not allowed the NCDOT to complete the project. We'd actually got word not that long ago that they were delaying the project again, but through some further discussions with them, that's led us to the opportunity to provide them, basically front them the money to do this project and administer this project. It will allow this project to get done, we hope, by the fall. So we are waiting for the agreement from the DOT for the board to approve and hopefully get started on this project in the summer. So that fund has $469,500 budgeted to it for this upcoming budget year. The project will include adding a traffic signal at the intersection, as well as constructing turn lanes and tapers. You all know very well that our town engineer and our police department identify this as one of the, if not the worst intersection in the town for trying to make turns. And so this will be, still will be a Band-Aid project, but it will greatly help the situation until the road is ultimately widened. And it will be an agreement where the NCDOT will reimburse us the cost in the next couple of years after their shortfalls soften. Your capital improvement plan reserve fund. This is usually funds that are reserved for economic development or capital projects. In years past, you've had some sizable amounts in here reserved for various projects and various transfers from the general fund. This year, we can't really afford to do that. We need those funds to help balance our operating budget in the general fund. But we do have one project that we hope to move forward with, and that would be the Public Services Parks and Recreation facility. So we have a budget of $175,000 for the design and survey for that work, so we can get that started in the near future once the budget year starts. The Transportation Small Project Fund, if you'll recall, this is the fund that was created for the $25 fee. That's the fee that's included in your vehicle registration. Of course, that pays for some various small transportation projects. The board just approved some funds to be spent out of that at the last meeting for the intersection, the traffic light at the intersection of Waxhaw Marvin Road and Kensington Road. So the board will continue to have the opportunity to expend monies for little projects like that in this year's budget. We're proposing that be $500,000 this year, where this past year's budget was $520,000 in 2019-2020. Your PAL bill fund, now that is the revenue that we receive from the state to help pay for the maintenance and repair of streets. It's based on a formula and distributed statewide to all eligible cities that have eligible roads. Have to meet a minimum width of 16 feet to be eligible, and it's determined by the number of miles of street that you maintain. We are proposing a reduction in those revenues, particularly since the last month or so. People haven't been pumping gas as much as they have prior, and so we have to take that into account and then add a little bit more from the fund balance to give us a good sizable budget to do the regular street maintenance and repairs that we need to have the ability to do. So we're proposing that budget in 2020 and 2021 to be $475,000. The rental fund, these are revenues and expenditures that are associated with the Niven Price building. Of course, you'll notice that budget is significantly reduced. The reason being there is we only have a handful of tenants there now. Many of them moved out in 2019 when there were some discussions about that building's future. Those haven't come to fruition yet, but we have to reduce that budget because of the reduction in tenants. One thing to note in this is that the revenue is only budgeted for 6 months as we continue to discuss the future of that building and property. So the proposed budget here for 2021 is $24,100. And last year it was $225,000. The cemetery fund, these are your revenues and expenditures associated with the town-owned cemetery. The 2019-20 budget is $20,100. And then the 2021 proposed budget's $18,100. Then you have several smaller police funds. You have an explorers fund, a state drug fund, and then a federal drug fund. we only get money for the federal drug fund every now and then, so we didn't bother to budget with that. And we have a modest budget for your police, state drug, and explorers funds this year at $8,700 and $500. Your building inspections fund, this is your restricted fund established for exclusive operation of the building inspections function. Now, so far, we haven't really seen a drop off in permits, but I'm not going to be foolish enough to expect that to continue. I want to be conservative here just in case. So we are looking at reducing that just to be safe from $1.3 million in 2019-20 to $907,700 in 2020-21. And we have the technology fund, and this was created to help defray the cost of admin and permitting function. It helps primarily pay for the cost of our credit card fees, and then it also has some replacement costs for software and technology expenses that are associated with it. One of the things I would like to do moving forward with this in the next budget cycle when we have more time to explore it is I don't personally think we should be paying for the credit card fees. I think that the applicant should be doing that. So that's something I'm targeting for next time around. But for this year, the budget is proposed at $86,300, where this past year, current year, was $115,000. Now, of course, there were quite a few deletions, as you can probably imagine, but I wanted to make note of just a few. First of all, was the chamber dais. We removed that from the budget, so apologize to the mayor for that. Website building and upgrade. We had two proposals for website upgrades. One was for, one was to establish one for the downtown, and then the other was to upgrade our own town website. Had to make the difficult decision to remove those, so I apologize there as well. And summertime events, of course, we made that executive decision to remove those from the budget. That cost was roughly $47,000. And instead of putting all of the capital equipment and things like that, I just kind of grouped that in one category. On a normal budget year, we would have been able to do some of the projects, like adding a skid steer or upgrading the bathrooms at Barnes Park, things like that. But we just aren't afforded the opportunity to do that with how we have to tightly budget right now. And lastly, as I mentioned, we're reducing the staffing of the planning department from 6 to 5. Your fee schedule, just a few notable updates. In your fee schedule this current year, you have a conditional zoning. When you have a larger scale, one of those come in, it's the base fee, and it's plus $15 per acre, where every one of our other charges for those larger fees was the $25 per acre. So we look to bump that one up to be consistent with our other fees. We did not have a cost for a permanent street closure. That doesn't happen very often, but we do have some right-of-ways, unopened right-of-ways, things like that, that somebody could petition to close. And there is a fairly significant cost to do that, because you have to run those ads more so than anything else, more than rezonings. So we are proposing to include that fee at $500. And we also, from time to time, have multiple reviews of projects. Typically, we can get a review done and out the door in 3 reviews or less. Occasionally, we have some that take longer, and very rarely we have one that can take an extreme amount of time, and we have one of those now. But this is a proposal to, as those ones that get into that they just can't seem to get everything they need right, or just something is is not happening there where we have to keep reviewing it, then we would propose that they help pay for those costs. And so we're looking at 50% of the original fee if they get into more than 3 reviews. And then lastly was just having the residential and 2-family and accessory structures all in one line at the $85. So timeline for adoption. Of course, here we are, May 7th. This is our budget workshop. And I guess depending on the board's level today, we would either move forward and just complete the budget message and move to public hearing and adoption, or if you feel like we need a second look or some additional work, I would propose we do that the week of May 15th. So we don't obviously have much time to be able to fit in anything. If there's any thing that you want to include or exclude or significantly change, we'd need to do that as soon as possible. Now, I had originally planned to tentatively have the public hearing and adoption perhaps the same night, but I found out last night that looks like that the state legislature, they've been working this week and adopting a bunch of new things. And one of the things that I hear they did is that if you have a public hearing during your state of emergency and it's a remote hearing, then you have to allow for comment before the meeting and up to 24 hours past the public hearing. So you really can't adopt anything in the same meeting. So I think that's going to require us to have the public hearing on the 9th and then actually adopt the budget now on the 23rd as a result of that new legislation, which I heard about last night. So we would do that at the same night that we would do our budget amendments and close out the year and get ready for the next budget year. So discussion items. I guess the direction I need is the board's comfort level with our now, I guess, based on what I just told you, our slightly abbreviated timeline for adoption, as well as the budget's comfort level with the budget as presented. There's always going to be minor adjustments between now and the public hearing. Some numbers that we get in are estimates, and then they come in as the real numbers. One example of that is we just got the final number for our liability insurance a couple of days ago, and it's actually less than the number that I put into the budget. So sometimes there's some adjustments up, sometimes there's adjustments down. If the board has something significant that they want changed or we need some additional discussion on, then we obviously need to do that, as I mentioned, in the next couple of weeks. If the board has anything specific that they want said in the budget message, we can certainly talk about that. I mean, it is a budget. It should primarily be focused on that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't talk about some other things, specific project related. The book that you received is, I would say, a rough draft of that. We would certainly add some more to that, specifically an executive summary at the front, and then probably some additional graphics and things like that to pretty it up a little bit more. But just let me know in this discussion today if there's something you want specifically said in that. Our target for finishing that would be May 29th, because we have to have that ready and available to the public prior to the public hearing, which we have to advertise a minimum of 10 days prior to. And then the other thing that I would strongly recommend is that we revisit this budget mid-year, perhaps in a different way than you normally would. I mean, we're expecting to have reduced revenues, and that probably will be the case. Hopefully it won't be as bad as we expect, but I think mid-year we really need to come back together and just see where we are. And, you know, if we're lucky, maybe we adjust the budget. Maybe we can add in some things that we had to delete right now to make this work. Hopefully it won't be the other way, but we just need to take, I think, a little bit of time mid-year and see how we're doing. So let's see, I talked for 40 minutes straight. So better than my practice run earlier today. So I condensed it by 20 minutes. So hopefully I did not bore you with all that, but so that's the PowerPoint presentation, and I can share the budget book too. I mean, we can delve into specific departments, specific line items. It's however you would like to move forward. I think Rosemary and I could probably answer many of the questions that you have, but just in case there's not something that we can answer, most of your department heads are here today and will be able to chime in. The one exception to that is Todd is not here today. He had something he had to deal with family-wise. And so if there's any question that we can't answer with his budget, we'll just have to record that down and get back to you. And plus, I'll also add that you know, if you don't think of something today, I know none of you are shy about getting back to us and with the question or something that we need to talk about. So with that, I guess I will cede the floor back to the mayor and take a quick sip of water and then be happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. Well, Jeff, I got to say thank you very much for you and the entire staff putting all this time, effort, and energy into this work to get it done. And I guess I'll call it record time. And with a lot of detail, I've gone through this myself, line item by line item as well, and preparing for this. You guys did just a phenomenal job. And we know that there's some uncertainty, you know, coming our way because of this pandemic that we're dealing with. But as you had once stated, I mean, we're looking at this to be basically a placeholder operational budget. We don't look to too many things on the capital improvement side. And so I think you guys have done a very realistic job on taking a look at what we have, not only on an annual basis, but on a 6-month basis as well, to give us some wiggle room, if you will, if things change and we can then adjust. So with that said, again, congratulations to everyone who's worked on this. That's a lot of work in record time, so appreciate that. What I'd like to do now is just drop back just a little bit to your questions side, and if any of the commissioners and Mayor Pro Tem have some questions, any specifics right now, I'll open it up to that. Raise your hand so I can see it if you're going to do that. Do I see hands? Are they hiding? Commissioner Moray is the first one, and then Commissioner Westlake after.
I'd also like to extend the thanks to Jeff and the rest of the staff for getting this done as it is. Having read some of the previous budgets, this one's really thought out well, and it's got a lot of information that's going to make it a lot easier for public to take a look and see exactly what it is that we're doing. Getting back to what you'd said about its presentation, once we've not so much adopted it yet, but once it gets into a public forum, then just to make sure that folks understand funding options, as far as if we have to do, if they make further changes to the budget, whether it be 6 months down the road or even between now and the time of its adoption, just so that folks understand how we're getting to that point and those decisions. That way, it's a little bit easier for folks to digest and understand exactly what is being done. But beyond that, it looks great right now. I think we can move forward with it. That the little tweaks that we're going to have to make are just that.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Westlake, you had your hand up a minute ago.
Yes, I want to also say thank you for all of the cuts during these uncertain times. All the families in Waxhaw are having to make adjustments too, and I think you've done a great job cutting where we could. I actually wanted to go through just some of the departments, not as a criticism or anything like that, but just trying to understand some of the things that were requested in the departments that we've had to cut, just so that I understand what they're asking for. So actually, if I'm just going straight out from the very first department under the elected officials, I'm seeing a cut in dues. What are we are we not being part of any kind of organizations or something with that, or what is that from?
Do you mind if I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay, so there were just some things that were budgeted in the elected officials' budget that really should not be coded to that budget. It was more an administrative cost. So I just moved them to the correct budget.
Okay.
Sometimes people don't understand the way things we have to do with finance, and they give it their best effort, but sometimes I have to move things where they belong.
Okay, and then just trying to flip through. I think I think it was Parks and Rec, there was a large item requested. I'm trying to find that now. Hold on. Well, I guess maybe it was like there's a safety and compliance and things like cleaning supplies, things like that, and then capital equipment. Just trying to understand, is there anything we should be doing considering the situation we're in right now, as far as cleaning, maintenance, all of that?
I'll let Rosemary address the cleaning. We actually consolidated a lot of that, but first I'll address the capital costs. Are these things that would be great to do? Yes, absolutely. But they're usually the big ticket items that a lot of times in many budget processes you have to target in order to balance the budget. So that's the tough decision that we made there for a lot of those good things that the Parks and Rec and other departments want. But obviously the tough choices were made this year, and hopefully, like I said, if we're lucky, at the midpoint of the year, maybe we can start adding some of these back if our revenues look better than we expected. So that's why I don't want this to necessarily be an end game, and that we revisit this in the winter time and just see where we are, and maybe there'll be an opportunity to add some of these things back in. But Rosemary, you can discuss the cleaning supplies and
Okay.
the cleaning contract.
I did have one short comment on the requests also, is from the department head's perspective, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. So this is kind of like the Christmas list, like, I want to do this and I want to do this, and we have a very passionate Park and Rec staff. So these are all some of those things were things that she's had on her list for several years that just keep getting cut. So she would like to put them back out there again. So that's one of the reasons for that. The cleaning contract, we really never had a cleaning contract. It was just an agreement, and she would charge separate for different buildings. It was all the same vendor. It was multiple people. And then also she would come in and she would do additional things. So when you get audited, they want to know, what contracts you have. And I felt necessary for us to just compact it all in one cleaning contract, because that's functionally how it was happening. And then if each department has additional services they need, like they want their windows cleaned or something else like that, then we'll do that separately from the main contract. But we did get bids on those. We got 3 bids for a cleaning contract, and we decided we would stay with the current vendor because they do a very, very good job. They also do additional things without charging us. So when you see a reduction in the cleaning, it's because the contract is not being cost allocated over every single department. It's going to be in one department. And then we left them money for cleaning supplies that they would need, because the contractor doesn't bring their own supplies. So we still have to have the supplies in the departments, in the buildings, and also like the police department, they like to wash their own cars. And Dina and them, they need to have cleaning supplies for the parks. So you'll see that they all still have some cleaning supplies, but the main contract itself is all in one department.
That was all I had right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Next up, anybody raising their hand? Commissioner Simpson. Go ahead.
Great. I too want to echo the sentiments of everyone else. I think Jeff and Rosemary and all the department heads did a great job preparing this, and in such a short period of time. I think it's great. And so I'm actually kind of looking through the budget book. And Jeff, I have your presentation up as well. Is one of the questions that I had was the motor vehicle taxes at 820. Does that include the vehicle fee, or is that separate?
It is separate from the vehicle fee.
Okay. And then I have my stuff all bookmarked here. One of the questions that I did have is I know, has anybody, do we know, have anything's been reached out to the Waxhaw Police Foundation? Because I know, like, in their mission, vision, and values and their goals is their role is to support the PD when we have budget shortfalls. I mean, they're supposed to provide things such as grants, equipment, training, professional development for our police department. And I didn't know if anyone has been in contact with them, or if there are any funds available through that we could possibly utilize.
I did not personally contact them. I believe that organization is still in its infancy, but if the chief's online, maybe he could address that a little bit. Chief, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Yeah, so especially due to the COVID stuff, a lot of the fundraising that they were going to do has been put on hold. So they're just kind of out there in limbo right now until we get through this. Then they're going to try and do some big fundraisers. When and if that comes anytime soon, I don't know. But once that ball starts rolling, then we can certainly reach out to them and ask for funds for any shortfalls in the budget.
Has there been any sort of discussion with them about if there's something that was a priority or that was a need that they would work to fulfill for us?
No, because right now they've got enough money just to maintain the accountants and whatnot. They haven't been able to have any fundraisers. They want to have a big golf tournament,
yeah,
and several things like that to try and get some funding in there, and then that's when we'll be able to start doing that.
Yeah, I think
unfortunately we got kicked in the gut with this, and it's just kind of slowed everything down.
I realize that. I just didn't know if there was a special need that there might be that there would be a goal for them to help assist with. I don't know if it was like the police explorers didn't look like it was a very big ticket item. That might be something. I don't know. It was just a thought. Section 3 in our book, when we go through the line items, what would be helpful for me, and I know maybe next cycle, and I know Jeff and Rosemary, you guys are working on putting financial statements for us, is to have a column for actuals. So we can kind of see where we're at, because looking at these numbers, it's difficult to determine if something's requested. Is that normal? I mean, I could request something $1 million, but I need something to compare it to, or to have an idea of, where are we actually? It just would help me.
Okay, we can do that.
That's just a little feedback. And then I have a question on the downtown budget. It was a line item, downtown projects. Can you give me an example of what a downtown project would be, or do we have any particular plans for a downtown project? If you need that line item number, I can give it to you.
They're small enhancement projects like wayfinding signage, benches, trash cans, smaller things like that. No one specific project, and no, there's not anything planned right now, but just to have a little bit of money for the opportunity to do something. And usually that opportunity presents itself at some point during the year.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure. And then when we go back to your PowerPoint presentation, is I know that you have things that you had to remove for the budget. items, and I really would like to see, let me see if I can find the page. What I really would like to see is the website put back into the budget, and I would propose that we use our general funds, our reserve funds that we have for the fund balance to pay for that cost. I think, especially given the COVID, I think if we could update our website and make it more user-friendly, it's a better interface for our citizens to be able to get work done that we can use without having them have to come in and have face-to-face contact, especially in this new post-COVID era. It might just be better to upgrade that and have some better functionality and interface to do that. And so that's what I'd like to see, is that to be put back in and pay for it through the fund balance. Since we have we're going to be at what, 47%, and our goal is max would be 40%. So I think there's a little bit of money in there that we could use to pay for that.
Okay, thank you, Ann. How does the rest of the board feel about the website?
I'll weigh in on that a little bit. I mean, even during the campaigns and afterwards, it was very, very hard to navigate almost anywhere on the website. It was very frustrating. And that's probably one of the chief complaints that I hear from citizens that contact me, is how difficult it is to find out information. And in some cases, they start sending in FOIA requests, which costs us money anyway to try to process those things, to get information that should be, public readily available. And so, we've talked about this for a few months now, and certainly some of us during the campaign. And I'm, for one, would like to see us work on that and get it all updated, build it right, especially in light of, what we're experiencing today, and probably our future uses of technology. And the website is going to benefit us a whole bunch. And I think the cost savings just by revamping that site will more than pay for what we have to do to it to go forward. Commissioner McMillon, do I see that hand? It's kind of hidden. Is that your hand going up over there?
I'm trying to unmute myself so that I can raise my hand, but yes. I agree with what was just stated. Also, it would also help to, I know that people have to come in sometimes and make payments and things into, at town. You can do that drop-down site so that they can do all of that online. So in addition to information that people need and, resources that they can find online, you can also have that payment site set up as well to make people more comfortable with having to pay without having to come into town as well. So I think that upgrade for the website is something that is much needed.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments on that topic? Commissioner Moray.
I just wanted to chime in that I agree. That has been something that we've needed to take care of for a long time. You can get that done and help out the residents so that, again, they don't have to come in, and we can handle that a lot better. And also, to get back to something that I think everybody kind of touched on, was some of these line items. I know in the presentation there really wasn't room for it, but if we can kind of give a face to some of these descriptions, then people have a better time understanding what it is that we're cutting or what it is that folks are asking for. If we put, like I said, a face to some of these items, so that it's a little bit easier to understand and know what it is that it's actually being done as far as that particular budget item.
I'll just give my input on the website. I also agree that's something we talked about at the retreat. I know there's times when I'm looking for information and you just can't find it on a mobile device, that I actually would have to switch over to my computer to find something. So we need to upgrade and have the mobile site going well too. So I agree.
Very good. That's good to hear. I think certainly we have consensus on that. So I think from a directive standpoint, Jeff, I think you have your marching orders on that to figure out how you fit it in, and where you fit it and where you pull it from or not. We'll leave that up to you creative types to be able to do that. I have one question with respect to our level of comfort. You guys have done such a great job and have moved so fast to put all this together. Not necessarily that you moved fast, but you were certainly inclusive on everything that we ever had to talk about. But we want to make sure that we respond in a likely time manner with you guys too. The proposed budget timelines or the approval timelines, I'm okay with meeting those. Question I have is the difference in your difference between minor adjustments and major adjustments. You can kind of give me a sense of that, because I would propose that we move towards the timelines that you would outline, even with the change by the state last night. So if you could address the minor, major things, that we can go either direction, and we'll have some more discussion on that with the rest of the board.
What I've heard so far, I would not consider to be major, and especially with everybody that's in consensus with it. We will work to put that money for the website back into the budget. Unless something else comes up between now and the end of this meeting, I don't see the need for the board to meet again to discuss it until the public hearing. That's just based on what I've heard so far, though.
Commissioner McMillon?
So if we have any additional questions or input, we should just send that to your attention, yours or Rosemary, and then you would disseminate it to the rest of the board regarding any other questions that might pop up that we have without having any additional meeting.
Yes, absolutely. If you have a specific question, send it to us, and then we can make sure that that everybody else sees the question too, and we'll answer those accordingly.
One more question. Do I see Mayor Pro Tem?
One more question right now, and that's regarding the downtown projects that you were talking about. What I've noticed is in walking downtown a lot, we have those outlets on the street that are plugged in, that's right there, like on the sidewalks. And sometimes that can be a hazard for people if they, don't see it or trip or whatever. Is there some way that can be adjusted or fixed so that does not present itself to be any form of hazard? I've noticed it by the real estate place, Upchurch, across the street on the corner where the furniture store is, down by the Waxhaw Creamery, in the middle of the block where Mona's Boutique is, all along, you have them and they're right in the street. It's a panel or something that's there. I don't know why it was set up that way, but is that something that can be looked into? Or because we don't want anybody tripping and falling and, liability issues and other issues. So just pointing that out.
We'll be happy to look into that. Don't know if it can be fixed yet, but we certainly will look into it and see what the situation is there and do what we can. Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know about that.
What she may also be referring to is the plug-ins for the holiday lighting and stuff. Those are in the way. They're in the sidewalks, and I know we're going to do some work down there, but kind of under the same thread of the Great Byram intersection, maybe we do those and put in surface type of plug-ins with screw caps on them to minimize that risk for us.
That's it.
If you could take a peek at that. I'm going to slide over. I see Rosemary's hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment and do some clarification for Ann on the things that are in the budget and that are not in the budget. I had planned after this meeting to provide to the department heads just exactly what you were asking for. Each one of these departments has multiple worksheets because what we started out with and what we ended up with. So I do plan on doing that, and I was just wanting permission that I just do it all at one time, or would you just like me to send you the backup worksheets now, or would you like it better? I'm not gonna like fancy format it, but it might take a couple days to get it all together so you can look at each individual item.
I don't think I need it right now, but I
Okay.
know, I think going forward when we have our meetings, it would be nice to get, because since I've been on the board, I have yet to see a financial statement of like where we currently are. And so
Oh, okay.
it would be nice moving forward if we get some sort of a report in a I don't know, once a month or quarterly to see what's budgeted and what's actuals. We haven't received any of that.
Okay. All right.
So-
So I misunderstood your comment. I thought you were asking for the sheets that we used while we were preparing the budget for what items that stayed in the budget and what things we had to cut. But no, my intent all along was to provide a dashboard at the end of every month that would show you revenues coming in, expenditures going out, what we have in each one of those funds. Yes, ma'am, I would be happy to do that. We're trying to get everything accomplished and just haven't been able to get to that yet. I haven't started.
You saw a little preview of that at our last meeting when I provided you that before one of your decision items. And our plan is to refine that and make it something that we provide to the board on a monthly basis so that you always know where we stand financially. What is our actual that we're bringing in? What is the actual that we're spending? What were we budgeted and all that? So, and we'd made that a goal to begin that once we get past this process.
I realize you're working towards that, but maybe next budget cycle, if you put a line item, it'd be good to include that. I mean, this budget cycle, I'm fine with it, and I don't want to add all that extra work to you. But I think moving forward, like if we have monthly reports, and then for the next year's budget, I'm fine with that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's great. Good comment. Thank you on that. Melody, did I see your hand go up for a moment there or not?
No.
Okay, very good. Given that we would move towards a consensus to go forward without having another meeting, what, Jeff and Rosemary, would be your time frames for the latest that we would have response or information back to you so we can stay on this schedule?
I would say we're at the 7th today. If we could have any questions or comments back from the board, say by, let's say Wednesday, the 20th. So that gives me time to do any answering or anything back that we need to do. Our target for having the message complete will be May 29th, if not sooner. You don't have to wait until 10 days prior to have the message ready. So if everything looks good moving forward, we'll do that. But once we get past the 20th and you've had more chance to digest everything and look at any specific numbers that you want to look at. So we will move to start preparing the message and move to have that ready by the time and make that available to the public. And then we'd have the public hearing on the 9th. And I guess I need to do a little bit of research to be sure, but as I mentioned before, based on what I'm hearing, I think we might have to separate out the public hearing and the adoption. I guess at worst, we'd do the public hearing on the 9th and then the budget adoption on the 23rd of June, along with our normal budget amendments that we have to do. So I think we're caught back up now, I guess you could say. The brunt of the work, phase 1 is done, did it all in a month. And, again, I just appreciate everybody's involvement and patience in the process. It's been a really good process. I've won't lie and say I didn't have a couple of coping moments with the challenges of making a budget work, but overall it's been a very, very enjoyable process. And I'm happy we're able to keep up our staffing levels and our service levels and our operational levels and still being able to keep the tax rate the same. So very proud of that.
And we are too. We really do appreciate all the work, you guys. It's a lot of work, a budget, and especially coming from behind a little bit on, personnel starts, and then having, to have pickup from the old accounting firm, the auditing firm changing out on us. So we had to deal with that as well. So from this standpoint, I'm going to ask the board members, if we're in consensus to stay on the schedule as the town manager has outlined it for us. Are we committed to do that and make whatever meetings that we have available for them to be able to accomplish this goal? Any comments from anybody? I see Mayor Pro Tem is unmuted there, so did you want to make it?
No, I just didn't know if you were gonna call a vote or something, so I wanted to make sure you could hear me.
I guess since we're in this situation, we can roll call. I'll start out with Mayor Pro Tem McMillon.
I'm fine with the schedule as it is. I'm good.
Very good. Commissioner Westlake?
Yes, I'm good with that also.
Commissioner Morey?
I'm good with the schedule also.
Commissioner Simpson?
Yes, I agree.
Outstanding. That's really great to hear, family. That's really good stuff. So we will make whatever adjustments we have in our schedules reasonably, obviously, to meet your questions, queries, or whatever you have to move forward. We'll stay on this schedule. We'll make it as painless as we can, but I thank every one of you for cooperating with this and putting the time, effort, and energy to review it. I know, at least from my standpoint, I have, and gone down every line item. And yes, I ask the questions when I have to. And I appreciate the town manager and the staff being available to us for all of our crazy questions. But this has been a great process. And I want to say again to both of you, welcome to the team. So,
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
so do we have any other questions regarding the budget? Anything going forward on it? Oh, very good. That's easy. So at this point, unless there's any other questions, I will let you all make a move to adjourn.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
mention one thing?
Yes,
Just
sir.
wanted, in case anybody is listening or watching out there, the governor, I believe 2 evenings ago now, began the process of reopening the state. Phase 1 is set to start after 5 p.m. on Friday. And so with the first phase of that, we will be opening portions of the park. Communication will go out tomorrow on that. We'll be opening up the green spaces, the trails, parking lots, things like that. Some other facilities will remain closed in the park until phase 2, such as playgrounds, bathrooms, things like that. We are targeting reopening of Town Hall for the phase 2, which is tentatively, I guess, scheduled to start 2 to 3 weeks after phase 1. I think right now it's scheduled to end at the end of day on May 22nd. So that would take it to Memorial Day weekend. So we're tentatively targeting the Tuesday after Memorial Day to reopen. Reason being, during phase 1, the governor is still encouraging telework. So we want to stay in line with that and be mindful of that. And we've still maintained our service level, and I think done a pretty good job as staff in maintaining things. So I just want us to be careful and not too rushed to get back, and just be mindful of the state and what they're encouraging. And so that's what we're looking to stay in line with. So just wanted to make sure that I shared that. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that leadership. It's, we've done such a great job of operating away from our posts, if you will, for quite a while now. And, we can almost actually do whatever we want. So we want to make sure it's safe. We want to make sure it's by the numbers. We want to make sure it's sustainable. And so I applaud you for following that. So thank you. Any other comments and questions? Anything open? So how about I'm going to do a roll call for a call. I'm going to call to adjourn this meeting. Mayor Pro Tem.
To adjourn?
To adjourn, please. Say
Okay.
aye.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Westler,
Aye.
Commissioner Morey,
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson.
Aye.
Great, we have it. Congratulations, everybody, and thank you very much for everything that you've done. It's a great deal of effort. Awesome.
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Bye.
Bye.